Yeah.
We're just like, ah!
Right.
Yeah.
Paper. Hi friends, we are back. We had a little time period of not making things, but now we're back and we're making more things for you guys. So we're going to talk about curation today. I'm really excited. I could talk about this topic for freaking hours and hours and hours because it's just, there's so much there. There's so much value there. So we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to break that down and get into some good stuff. But first, Will, you have a new toy.
I do.
Tell me about your new toy.
So I just recently picked up a Fuji X-T1. So I was looking to have something more exclusively for the street because for my professional work I shoot with Nikon and stuff like that. But I felt like I wouldn't mind having something that's a bit lighter, a bit easier to travel with, and Fuji kind of fell into the realm where it still had an APS-C sensor, so I was really interested in their offerings, and I've had it a couple weeks now, and it's pretty fantastic. I mean, there's definitely shortcomings compared to a DSLR, and there's things it does a little bit better, but overall, I've been really happy with it.
So what has been your favorite thing so far about that?
I really think, which is kind of controversial, it's the EVF, the live view. It's the big thing for me is when shooting street. Since I do portraiture, it's not necessarily I need to have a really fast autofocus, but it's more that when I'm having to go back and forth and adjust my exposure comp and take the same image several times and then worry about my focus. The great thing with mirrorless is the EVFs adjust as you adjust your exposure comp. So basically what you see through the little screen is exactly how your image is going to be exposed. And the other thing that's great about the Fuji is it's autofocus. It's a little bit slow, but it's incredibly accurate. So its lock-on periods, once it locks on, it just stays on target, and I don't have to worry about several frames. So between the exposure comp being seen through the live view, combined with the fact that the focus system is a little slow but more accurate than what I was previously using, it really has been incredibly useful in my street photography so far.
Nice. Very cool.
Look how it looks so nice.
I'm so jealous. This is such a beautiful camera. This is so cool.
And it's got the tiny 27mm pancake on it right now, which is the size of a lens cap almost.
Yeah. I've wanted a Fuji camera for a long time. They're really fantastic looking and just really solid cameras, but they're the less popular camera in the world of most photography, but I think street photographers are some of the few people that have really seen the value in having something like a Fuji camera.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when I was looking at mirrorless, they're one of the few people that aren't micro four thirds, or, Sony's doing their thing with the giant full frame sensor and the 42 megapixel thing that just came out. That's the behemoth beast thing. But they also have so few lenses, and the lenses are so expensive. So I mean, I think Fuji strikes a good chord if you're looking for something that can still do a good bit of professional work and have good low light performance, while also transition to the street. And that's what kind of helped me validate the purchase. Was when I'm shoots, it was nice to have a second body with a second lens to just whip out and shoot with. And really, compared to most DSLRs I've used, Canon or Nikon, the white balance is so much more accurate, which I know you can post-process and fix, but it's nice when in-camera skin tones and even in really weird lighting conditions turn out just right, which can be a big headache to fix. The other big thing is the glass they sell. I think they're one of the few camera companies that really produces unbelievable glass. Is it expensive? Yes, and do they not offer many options below certain price points? But everything's made in Japan except for, I think, just this lens. So just their cheapest pancake lens. I have the one. Lens. Yeah, I know.
Powerful. Will.
I do have the 56 one too. So I mean, they have incredibly fast glass and things. If you don't want to go full frame, if you're not shooting full frame, they're really the only company that creates really, really premium APS sensor lenses. They have a 35 full frame equivalent 1.2 or 1.4, 50 equivalent 1.4, 85 1.2. So they have some really fast, really impressive glass, and they just have the old retro throwback feel with the aperture rings. This is also the only one that doesn't have the aperture ring on. So This lens
Most
is
of
kind
them
of missing
do.
out. Yeah, every other Fuji lens, even their other Pancake, has a manual aperture ring, and you have every single setting imaginable, so you don't even hardly have to turn your screen on. It also is the largest viewfinder in terms of space it takes up of anything, even bigger than like Canon's giant optical viewfinder on their.
The inside the can.
Yes.
Inside. Okay.
Yes. In the actual.
Like full coverage? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and just like.
The size.
Yes. Yes. The size is just like.
Nice.
It's like going to the movies when you put your
Yeah.
eye in there.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go get a credit card and go until can't let my wife watch this video. Okay, so as this is what happens as photographers, we start talking about something that has to do with art, and then we see a camera and go, "Oh, this is shiny," and then we talk about it for 10 minutes. I don't know how long we've been talking about this.
Probably longer.
Probably a while.
Yeah.
That's okay. There's value there. So, so we're going to talk about curation today, and first I'll say that I believe that overall, all of everything curation comes down to telling a story. What story do you want to tell to people? What is your purpose with that story? How do you want people to perceive the art that you're creating? Are you wanting to make money with that story? Are you wanting it to be purely just a passion piece? So it can be many things, and I think there are no rules, but there are also excellent guidelines to, I think, help overcome some of the problems that I see happening on the web, in photographers' lives, things like that. So, Will, what is something that you think? What are some of your guidelines for curation?
I mean, really, I think the first thing that everyone needs to kind of do is, especially if you're starting off shooting, you just kind of shoot everything, blah, 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 blah.
Get one of those big white lenses. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Once you finally kind of understand, okay, this is something I like, I think it's important to go through kind of even more of an editing process and really understanding, like for me, it's street style. So, I mean, if I see somebody who's really interested in looking on the street, it doesn't really relate to what I produce on my blog. I might shoot them for my portfolio or something, but they're not going to go onto that blog. And it's tempting to be like, oh, this is a really beautiful, cool picture. Let me just throw it on here. But unless you really, kind of categorize and build in a lot of things, it's really better to kind of focus on really building this narrative. And when people look at your work, there's a cohesion. And I think that's what curation creates, is kind of a feeling that this is your work and this is your perspective on, and it's not to say you can't have different perspectives on different projects, but we'll just approach it from like one blog standpoint. For me, for my street style, it's very much one particular feel made by using very specific types of lenses.
There's this amazing quote that I'm not going to quote because I'll mess it up, but I'm going to get I'm going to paraphrase it. It's basically that by a guy named Sean McCabe, and I think I've said it on this channel before because it's just so good. But he says that you have to curate because people can't process all of your awesomeness at once. You have to give them little bite-sized things, and you have to make them go, okay, this is a person who does this specific thing. When I think of street style photography, I think of Will. And if your blog, it's another thing I do. If your blog isn't curated, you have, this fashion thing, and then a wall, and then a flower, and then a train track, and then a flower on the train track with a wall under the train. I don't even know what I'm saying. And I kicked the table. This is going downhill quickly. Yeah. If you have all of those things happening, you have a stream of consciousness happening on your blog, it doesn't make sense and people can't latch on to what you're about. But if you focus in on what it is that really matters, and you have a vision for what you want, and that you kind of stick to that vision in everything that you post, you end up creating something that people can scroll down and go, okay, you want the viewer to have absolutely no question in their mind about what you do. There are excellent blogs online that we've talked about where it's literally just portraits of people's faces from this close.
Yes.
That's all they do, in black and white.
And vertical format for every single portrait.
Right. And there's, yeah. And
Every
there's,
single one.
right. And there's no question about what that blog does, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll talk about my blog. My blog is, hold on. Check the time here. Sorry, I'm going to mess up everybody's audio to 12 minutes. Okay, we're good. We're still going. There we go. This might end up having to be 2 takes. We're going a little rogue today. My blog is my kind of guideline, or not my guideline, my vision is sharing passions and stories. And I put passions first because there's an emphasis on that. I'm very passionate about people's passions. And so how that plays out is I want to create a blog that has aesthetically beautiful photos that have just a baby story or thought from the person in the photo attached to some of them, not even all of them, because I think we talked about this too before. I'll let you say this, but talk about how you had to go through this evolution of making yourself have to kind of, I'm wording this horribly. Talk about how you took all the words off of your photo because you wanted your photo to speak for itself.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think this is a natural process you go through. It doesn't necessarily have to be the story or words you write. It could be what types of pictures are on your blog, or how you format them, or how you edit them, or if you only shoot film, or if you only shoot digital. It could be any of these things, but I kind of started with these long descriptions because I honestly just thought I was not a very good photographer. And I was like, I like this person I shot, and I feel like I have good reasons why, but I feel like I have to explain it to the viewer. And as I kind of focused my work more and also developed my perspective, it kind of got where, one, I felt like I was kind of writing a repetitive thing because my subject matter was very concise and very focused. So I felt like, okay, this is just being repetitive. And also I felt the pictures were getting better and better, and my body of work was large enough where I felt maybe you don't like this picture, you don't understand it all, but if you keep flipping through, you'll understand that meaning. And I think that's where curation comes in too, is that feeling of, you know, by removing the excess elements that kind of create confusion and just kind of distract from the main message of your blog, and you may not post as many pictures, and I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's more important to really have that strong focus. And, you know, if your portfolio is the place where you have all sorts of different things that you show, but if you're doing like a specific blog or, you know, something relating to something very precise, you really want to try to cut everything else out because it just distracts from what you're trying to actually produce. And for me, it was the words was just another distraction.
So a big rule that is especially in the, is excellent by the way, big rule that I've heard from people, especially in the filmmaking world, is that telling a story is not about what you add to something, but what you leave out. And I think if you want to tell a very compelling story, a lot of times the best thing you can do is leave off all of the excess stuff. There's a time to play, and there's a place to play, and you know, take your photos take your senior portraits and all these other things, play around, figure out what you want to do. But the value in curating what you do is that the follower will, I guess I'll just say it creates a more compelling result for the person who is following you. And if you want to communicate, if you want to just communicate chaoticness and like all these different photos, and you want it to be a stream of consciousness, that's fine. But you're going to miss out on a lot of value that can come from curating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's important too, maybe to point out structurally, it doesn't necessarily mean like, you know, James does a story element and he does portraits of people he finds interesting, and then I do street style, so focus on people that are expressing themselves visually in different ways. But I think curation can even be, you know, how you post process your pictures, you know. It can be a lot of different subjects, but I think you need to know there's some sort of theme. And as you build your body of work, people can see that theme, which is harder if you're kind of shooting a lot of different things. But I think you can still execute this idea of curation through multiple subjects, but you still have to have some sort of theme. So it's not to say you have to shoot only this kind of street style, but I think thematic elements are necessary to really coalesce. I don't think that's the right word for it. But anyways, it sounds nice. It made me sound like I was talking about
We'll
your
later.
ideas together into something. So I think like things like, how you post process, and you do an awesome job of this. Anytime I see any of James' photos, I know they're his because he even has an awesome tutorial on how he post processes. So I won't go on.
Did I make one of those?
Yeah, it's really awesome.
I'm almost out of coffee, Will. This is a problem.
So I mean, the way he does that is fantastic, and it just helps reinforce that I know it's James' shot. And also I think, he generally shoots with one focal length. I shoot with a couple, but they're generally more in the telephoto range and a little bit longer than what most street photographers would use. And I think people don't talk enough about the feeling a lens creates. So like if you shoot wide, like a 24, 28, 35.
That's a whole nother video.
That's, its own thing. And that's definitely a talking point, for another time. But I think it's important to think of curation, not just in like, okay, I'm going to shoot people, but, what focal length am I going to use? What do I want the scene to be part of the story? Do I just want the person's face? And your lens choice really affects how it's going to look. And even if you're shooting street style like I do every day, and you take out a different lens every day, you're shooting with a 20 and then you're shooting with a 105 and then you have, a 50, it's not going to feel as strong as a body of work, even if your subject matter is very similar.
It's funny you say that because I took a photo the other day of a girl. It's on my blog, but every time I scroll past it, I saw that I took that shot with a different focal length, different lens. I shot it with like a 70 to 300 millimeter. I forget where I was. It was like f4. Every now and then I'll take out my zoom lens and play around with it, but normally I shoot with a 51.8. And that one shot, every time I scroll past it, just makes me irk a little bit because it just looks different. It just feels different. It doesn't feel quite me, right? Okay, sorry guys, this is only our second week. We had a problem there. My camera kind of peaked out on DSLR problems. Anyway, that's it. That's all we have. Thank you so much for watching. I don't even know where we cut out, but I think
we got enough in there.
We got a lot of good stuff.
We were going for a long time.
That was very good. So thank you guys so much for watching. If this brought you value, let us know. Like it. That lets us know. Comment. That lets us know. Be super in-depth about your comment. We want to hear what this made you think about and how this helped you, for sure.
We want to make a video just on your question.
We want to make a video.
That's the kind of question we want to get.
Oh, dude, yes.
It's like we can't write the answer, and it goes on for days. I mean, it's like, we're just like,
Right.
Yeah.
Paper.
Everywhere.
Yeah. Business. I'm sorry, that was rude.
That was kind of rude.
That was your card.
It's all right.
I'll get that in a second. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a lovely day.